Today, I'll be taking you through my journey of learning how to draw anime-style bellies, from no anatomy knowledge to this in less than a day. Recently, I've been seeing a lot of incredible art on Twitter and Pixiv, and the ones that activated my neurons the most were the ones with nice bellies. And seeing this, I was inspired. I wanted to be able to draw like that myself, so I got started right away. But there's just one problem. I don't even know basic anatomy, so we are gonna need to do some research. If you've looked into belly coloring, then you might have stumbled across this book by Mignon. However, we're not going to be using this, because the parts on belly can be found on his Pixiv and on this website, along with a free Photoshop file for you to follow along with. So that's what I'll be doing to learn the basics. The way Mignon colored his bellies was through the system of masks. I've never seen anything like this before, and although it looks intimidating, I've realized later on that this system is incredible. For brushes, I use Mignon's brushes, which are basically default Photoshop hard brush, soft brush, and opacity brush. But the most important tool that you'll need is the smudge tool. So I set up the files, had the block on the other screen, and I started my very first attempt of coloring the belly. The first thing I did was to color in the places that will definitely be dark, according to Google Translate. These are the shadows that forms around the shape of the muscles, bones, and fat. I did this by drawing thin lines in the mask of the first layer, then blurred them using the smudge tool. I copied the anatomy guide from the website, but I didn't actually know how to use it or what each line represents. Moving on, the next layer was used to describe the main shadows. Although I could tell that the light was coming from the top left, this was still really difficult. I didn't really know what I was doing. Like, why are there shadows here? What are these triangular areas? And isn't this a bit too much shadow? But ignoring all the questions I had for now, I just went ahead and copied Mignon's to the best of my ability. After using the smudge tool, things just turned out fine. This, along with the first layer, is pretty much 90% of the work. Next up, shadows. Wait a minute, this is like the third shadow. What's next? More shadows? Yes, more shadows. And I think this fourth shadow was added to slightly tint the color of the third shadow, the cast shadow. And this is why this mask system is incredible. I didn't have to worry about picking the right colors. Next, I added red glows to the center and sides using soft brush. After, a slight blue glow to darker areas was added. The final layer was the highlights. And wow, that is insane. Never in 1,000 years did I think that I would be able to draw something like this. Now that I understand how to use the layers and brushes, I decided to do copy practice to expose myself to different angles and lighting. So I picked 3 of Mignon's finest illustrations and started the copy practice. The first thing that I did was to practice drawing guidelines, and it sucked. The twisting pose made it really hard for me to visualize where the guideline goes. After getting what I thought was okay, I continued with the same usual steps. Even though all I'm doing is copying the image, this exercise was actually really helpful. Not only was I getting more comfortable with the tools, I was also getting a grasp of how light interacts with the belly. First one done, 2 more to go. The second one was still difficult for me, but I was getting much faster. The layers that Mignon provided were excellent. In my case, there was no need to tweak the colors at all. But if you want to, you can always change the colors of each layer. The last image was going to be the most challenging. Not only was the angle going to be tough, but there was another layer of difficulty. And that was the sweat. But first I had to go through the usual process. Then I added the sweat. I did this by using sweat layers. That's right, Mignon also has pre-made sweat layers. First I drew a streak of water, then I added white highlights. Yeah, that's it. The next challenge was to do that again, but this time without looking at the original images. The idea was to give myself time to look at the image, hide it, then recreate it from memory, and to only check once I'm done. And this was the hardest exercise throughout this whole study, but also the most helpful. So here, I took a good look at the image one last time. Wait, what was I supposed to do again? Okay, there's actually no point in trying to memorize the image. As soon as I hit the image, my mind just went blank. All you really need to remember is the direction of light. And it's probably better this way, since this will truly test whether I understand how to use the guide and layers. Overall, not too bad. But being able to compare your results to the original was the point of this exercise. And when I did that, I realized that my outcome was actually shit. One thing that really surprised me though was the guide that I drew. I feel like my guide was off only by a little. So I redid the guidelines, made notes on what to improve on, and then made corrections. Then I did the same thing with the second attempt and the third attempt. And this were the outcomes. The final trial, drawing from references. This will test all the skills that we went through and push my ability to its limits. Or at least that's what I thought was going to happen. Surprisingly, the previous exercise was way harder. Despite that, I think that this exercise was going to be very helpful because realistically, I will be drawing a lot from photographic references. So being able to turn real photos into stylized drawing was a skill that I needed to have. At this point, I was quite comfortable with the coloring process. I'm actually still quite shocked by the quality and consistency of Mignon's layers. I'll definitely be trying this out more with my future illustrations. And here's the final outcomes of the 3 attempts. I'm really happy with how these turned out, but what do you think? Not sure if this video was helpful. Let me know if you gave this a try and how you found it.